Okay, let's do coal ash. We might as well get to it. Did Senator Surovell, no, come on. All right. Let me describe the posture. We have Senator Chase has put in one coal ash bill. Senator Surovell has managed to put in 6 bills that address coal ash for a total of 7 bills. The House has put every single coal ash bill into a study. And directed by the Chairman Kilgore in the study. There are some actions that we'd like to be able to take to allow those utilities that have consolidated coal ash into a single pond to get the final permits to allow them to close the ponds that they have moved from. Would you agree with that, Senator Surovell?
Yes.
Okay. Is there other action you'd like to take beyond that?
Yes.
Describe what that might be.
It's important that we continue the existing moratorium, number one, because the moratorium expires officially on May the 1st, 2018, in a couple months here. And if we're going to continue to gather information about this, that moratorium has to stay in place, or else all these ponds could have a rubber tarp put on them with dirt, and another $500 million gets spent, and the odds of us undoing that, I think, are remote. And before the Dominion does that to our ratepayers, I think we need more information. Secondly, the substitute that I had prepared also requires Dominion to go out and do our RFPs for coal ash recycling. And when they get those RFPs back, to provide them to you, Mr. Chairman, the Chairman of Commerce and Labor, so that we can all have clear information about exactly what the recycling companies propose these things will cost, so that we can have really clear information before we as a body make a policy choice about how to close these ponds, which eventually our ratepayers in Virginia will end up paying for. And it's at least going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, potentially billions. And I think before we make that policy decision, we need to have better information. And so those two things, three things have to be done.
All right, I understand what you're saying. Let's hear from the utilities on the last two things. Is there anyone here representing the utilities? Mr. Murray.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Murray from Dominion Energy. This is sort of an agreement in concept. We are comfortable. We view it as very important for situations where the ash has been removed or is being removed from a pond to be consolidated into another pond on site, or in one instance where ash is already being recycled, that we'd be able to go ahead and move forward on getting the permits necessary so that those are not those ponds that used to have coal ash can be closed. So we appreciate the patrons' openness to that. With regard to the recycling, I do want to be clear that while we're happy to do an RFP, we're going to actively manage that RFP. Our experience with vendors is that sometimes, sort of the sales pitch from a vendor and the business plan is not critical. It's just the nature of life. We're going to carefully analyze those recitals. So we're not going to just simply, and if we need to work on language on the other side, we're happy to do that. We're not simply going to just transmit the bids that we receive. We'll do that, but we'll also overlay with that our analysis of the feasibility and what we find from looking at that. So I think of that as sort of developing a business plan for recycling, as we would with any prudent undertaking. And then, of course, in terms of any further study, that's your pleasure, and that's the committee's pleasure.
Part 3 of that, extending the moratorium.
That seems to be where things are headed. I would say this: it would be better to move forward with being able to close the ponds where the ash has been removed than having a moratorium for everything. So it's something we can live with as an overall concept.
I believe Senator Spruill had a question.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the RFP on that, I noticed that you can do that. So I want to know, is that passed on to the customer? Because most utilities now, I find now, they do anything, they pass the customer on to the customer. So does this entail passing the fee on to the customers?
Senator Spruill, as I understand, we'll do the front end of the RFP. In other words, we'll take the bids, but until we receive further legislative guidance, we wouldn't move forward with actually issuing any contracts or anything like that. I think what we're being asked to do is find out how much would this cost, so that you all can make some decisions next year on is recycling something that you're interested in making the policy of the Commonwealth. So, but basically, we would take the bids but not act on them. We'd share that information in our analysis with you all. on what the costs are.
Mr. Chairman, second question.
Senator Sproul.
Second question was, Senator Scott's survey said something about, in 2 months, something closed down in two months. So if we continue, like they put them all together like they did in the House, if we do that, then it's 2 months. Scott said something about something that's expired in 2 months. How would that work? You follow me? You were saying something about this would expire something in 2 months.
I think what he's referring to, current law, Senator Sproul, on a bill that you all passed last year, said the DEQ could not issue any permits until May of 2018, which I think was basically contemplating if you all passed a bill this year. And as I understand what the senator is contemplating is to extend that for another year for ponds where there is ash, but for ponds where ash has been removed to allow us to move forward with closing those ponds.
You have a problem with that?
I think as part of an overall compromise, we view it as progress to be able to close out those ponds, and it would be right much permanent work. We are taking ash out of more ponds than we're having ash remaining in, so there would be a fair number of ponds we'd be able to close that way and move forward. So it's certainly a little more than half a loaf in that regard.
All right, let's get the substitute before so we have a working document. It's been moved and seconded to substitute. We'll call it Senate Bill 807. Will be the document, Senator Surovell. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, knowing that we're going to have a study, I'd like to have everybody draw the committee's attention to the very last 2 pages. It calls for that study. We have exceeded the time allotted by rules for a study, so I can set the study up by rules. So I'd ask that for everything from line 636 to the end of it be stricken, and I'd so entertain a motion for that. Been moved and seconded that 6 be removed, lines 636 to the end of the bill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, my understanding is that on from 630 to 635, those lines would allow where we've moved coal ash out of existing ponds for those to be closed under permit, but would also extend the moratorium for another year. Do I read that paragraph 5 right? Does that accomplish that? 630 to 635. Does that do both of those functions?
No, that's got the concept there. I will say, Senator, that there are a great number of lawyers involved who probably would want to add more words at some stage of the process, but it's clear on the intent there. And of course, we have no view on the study. That's you all's pleasure.
I understand. I understand. Okay.
But we're happy to do the recycling work that was contemplated.
Okay. I don't think 4 needs to be in there. Section 4.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you looked at the sub that I handed you on the floor, but paragraph 5 is the only thing they had in common. The rest of the bill was not what we, at least I've been talking about with the administration and the stakeholders in the last.
All right. Do we have language on
6 hours
on going out for an RFP? Is there language on that? Okay. There's a second sub. It's not before us, but we're going to try to incorporate those portions of the sub into this bill. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, while that's being done, can I ask a question?
Yes.
For Mr. Murray.
Senator Cosgrove.
Sir. Mr. Murray, as you know, in the city of Chesapeake, we have a very large coal ash deposit. Is that in any way, shape, or form considered under removal?
Senator, with regard to Chesapeake, and I apologize if I don't get my terminology exactly right, it is primarily the legislation in front of you is dealing with impoundments. So of the ash at Chesapeake, a small subset of it is in what would be considered an impoundment, and that's actually the language we have here on being able to move forward with impoundments where we're recycling the ash. That's that small subset of the total ash at Chesapeake that would be considered an impoundment under this legislation. That's what we'd like to be able to continue to move forward with regard to recycling, and then ultimately maybe closing out that pond if it were DEQ's will looking at the regulations and look at the application to grant the permit. The much larger volume of ash there is, and this is a non-legal, non-environmental term. It's essentially a peninsula that was constructed using that as a building material. And this legislation My quick look would not speak to that. That, as you know, is the subject of some continued litigation, and I think the goal here is not to change the posture of any of the litigants there, but to deal with the small subset of ash that is in the impoundment that is being recycled, and I'm not aware of any particular controversy on that subset of the ash
All right,
there.
Mr. Chairman, further question.
Senator Cosgrove.
We have 3 million tons of ash. Is that about right in that Chesapeake?
So,
All right. How much ash is in the area that you're talking about recycling?
my recollection is it's tens of thousands of that. It is a small fraction of that.
All right, and the final question, Mr. Chairman.
What's the location,
Senator
John?
Cosgrove.
John, what's the
Well,
location?
hang on a minute, Senator Sproul. Senator Cosgrove has the floor. Senator Cosgrove.
I'd ask Mr. Murray, obviously I'm very concerned about the ash pile in Chesapeake. Okay, so that will be included in anything that's studied as well.
Oh, absolutely. We would study.
It's
Right.
not going to be discounted or taken out or withdrawn. Is that your understanding?
My understanding is what this legislation, if in concept has been described here for you, would allow, to the extent there is active recycling going on at Chesapeake, that would be allowed to continue. And that as part of our look at recycling, we would look at all 4 sites, Chesapeake certainly being one of those 4 sites.
All right, thank you, Mr.
And
Chairman.
we would look at all of them equally.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. and the
Okay,
sunset.
let's get, Senator Sproul, you were next.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I was trying to follow up from Senator Cosgrove. The part that you're going to do, what you're not going to do, I'm trying to find out the location. Where about the tens of thousands that you are going to recycle out of the ground, do whatever? But that's the part that you're not going to touch right now. So what location are we talking about?
There's what's called, I believe it's called a bottom ash pond at Chesapeake, where we've been doing, have been working to do some recycling of that small subset of the ash. And this would allow, to the extent we're already doing recycling, this would allow that to continue. So that would not change anything that we're currently doing there, nor would it prejudge anything that is the subject of ongoing litigation.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Could
Senator.
I clarify that? Could I clarify for that?
But Senator Stewart was
Okay.
next.
All right.
Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know if this, well, this is a question somewhat, but then I think an important consideration. And maybe Mr. Murray can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've agonized over this because I represent part of Prince William County, and obviously we've got Possum Point, and if you look at moving all that coal ash in that pond, that's a tremendous undertaking for right many years. And so all the roads are clogged up, and I mean, it's just a tremendous undertaking at a tremendous expense. I understand, and maybe somebody can help me with this, if you recycle it and make bricks out of it, and you have to move it to do it, or even if you recycle it on site, and then you have to reburn that coal ash. And so essentially you could be reburning carcinogens in the vicinity of where it is now. Is that accurate?
Senator, I've got to apologize that I'm not an expert in the recycling process. We could certainly make those experts available to you either in this committee or in the committee that you chair. Having said that, what we would do if we were asked to look at taking bids for recycling, we would take last year's analysis that we did and really sort of sharpen our pencils on the recycling part of that. A lot of what you're describing was analyzed in the report last year's legislature asked us to do. If you all are sending us a signal that you'd be particularly interested in some additional analysis on recycling, we'd continue to do that analysis. We would not view what's in here as limiting, that we would only accept bids. We'd certainly look at all the pluses and minuses in recycling and try to keep whatever study vehicle you all set up, or if not, or the standing committees, well informed, so that you could make further policy choices down the road.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
thank you.
Stewart.
I don't know what I think is best yet. I really think this is a hard choice. It's expensive. There are risks and burdens associated with each. And I guess what it would boil down to is, in this study, I think it's important that we have input from the people local to this that would be affected. And I think we ought to incorporate that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Stewart, let me tell you the posture I think we're in right now. We have some parts of the substitute that Senator Surovell had that we would roll in there, and that would be, I believe, the of your substitute Senator Surovell, Senator 8 through 21 is already covered under our subsection 4.
8 through 22.
8 through 22 is already covered by what our language in 4.
Right.
And a lot more condensed and easy to read. Sections 2 and 3, I would make, what's that? 5, I'm sorry,
Yep.
5, not 4, 5. So sections 2 and 3, I would propose the amendment that we put sections 2 and 3 into my substitute, okay? And move forward with that as our.
Can I also say, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
that the only part of your bill that is needed is section 5.
I know, and I'm gonna make that next, okay?
Okay, all right.
All right? So it's been moved and
Second.
seconded that the number 2 and 3 from Senator Surovell's bill be put into the substitute we're working with right now. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Now, the next amendment I'm gonna make is that we strike sections 1 through 4, which starts on line 608 and ends on line 629 for my amendment, just to get in the right posture. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moved and seconded, that language be stricken. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let me tell you where I think we're at right now, okay? We are going to continue to delay the issuance of any permits until 1 July 2019. We also are going to allow DEQ to issue permits to close the ponds that are already cleaned up. Okay, issue final permits on that.
Correct.
We are going to direct Dominion to go out and seek RFPs on recycling so that we have a lot more information about the costs, what we're looking at, what can be done, what can't be done, and move forward with that language so that we have a lot more information. In tandem to that, I will, and Delegate Kilgore, the Chairman Kilgore, and the House has already set up, and I will designate a committee off this Commerce and Labor Committee, probably including some of the patrons of the bill, to be on that study, to work in tandem as we sort through this on possible solutions for these coal ash problems.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Senator Dance.
I surely would like to be added because I've been real quiet as they've discussed all of this because the coal ash pond in Chesterfield County is in my part of the district, but I'm listening. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. For Mr. Murray. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Murray, just to alleviate Senator Spruill's concern and some of mine as well, when we're talking about the Chesapeake coal ash area, what you described as ongoing recycling activity, is that co-located with the larger pile right on the Elizabeth River?
It's the bottom ash pond. Let me look at my friends here to see bottom ash. It's the bottom ash pond, which is a small subset of the overall facility.
But it's
It's
right
the former
same,
power plant site.
it's right in the same area.
Yeah, it's what we used to call Chesapeake Energy Center when it was an active coal
My
plant.
last comment, Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Cosgrove.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very important to us in Hampton Roads. This coal ash depository sits on the southern branch of the Elizabeth River, which is less than 10 nautical miles from Chesapeake Bay. Heaven forbid there is a natural disaster, probably a tornado. Lord knows we get our hurricanes. We're concerned about that. We're concerned about having the same kind of spill that Duke had. And so I'm glad this is going into study. We can look at all that and try to get some peace in the valley and some understanding.
The one distinction I'll make, Senator, is 3 of these 4 sites, primarily the majority of the ash at one time was in water in what was called an ash pond.
Right.
And while there was an ash pond at Chesapeake, it was a small subset of what was involved in ash landfill. Right. So that while I absolutely understand the concern and the sensitivity of the site, the exact facts of the Duke situation would be more related to something where the ash is stored in water.
Right.
And that, as I understand the overall federal rule that we're trying to comply with, the whole point of the overall federal rule was to not have situations where ash was in water that might be then get into an ambient water body because of an impoundment break.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. All right, we have the bill and the posture it is. Is there anyone that would feel compelled to speak on this? Michael, is there?
I'm good.
You're good, okay. There's peace in the valley. Yes. Yeah, okay, well, yeah,
Mr. Chairman, to confirm what's going to be reported as a substitute by this committee, it's going to be a Section 1 bill comprised of what was your fifth enactment from your substitute, and then the second enactment and third enactment will be Sections 2 and 3 of the shorter substitute that Senator Surovell offered. Is that
got it.
correct?
And I need to hear from Senator Chase. Senator Chase, would you come up for a minute? Have you followed everything we've done?
Not a thing. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, somewhat. I just wanted to make a couple
Sure.
comments, if I could. Senator Surovell and I have been working very closely on this bill, and we're going to work as a team on this. I do want to add some things regarding Chesterfield, because Senator Dance and I have been, talking a little bit about this, and I want to make sure she understands specifically Chesterfield. My big concern with this is that we want to make sure that whatever expense that is incurred, that we are allowed to expense this over a period of longer than 21 years to address Senator Dance's issue of this could be a tremendous cost on the front end in the form of a rate adjustment clause, which we don't want to pass on to the consumer. So if we can have the opportunity to expense that over a longer period of time, I want to make sure that's included in there, because I support removing the coal ash. I want it to be gone. I mean, we're talking in Chesterfield about the coal ash. There's no liner between the coal ash and the ground. And you're talking about hexavalent chromium and arsenic and all these other dangerous materials. I want it out of my floodplains. There's one in Chesterfield. I want it away from the river, which is within just a couple feet away. I just like to see it all removed. And that's, I think, overwhelmingly what I'm hearing from the constituents in my district. And so if we turn this into a study, I just want to make sure we're studying the right thing. We just got an 800-page document from an independent study. And I know in that it included a lot of things that required cost for barging, cost for trucking, and a lot of things that I think would actually create a second public safety issue. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure we're not creating a second public safety issue with flying coal ash and all those trucks. Senator Dance and I don't like that. But if we have this on site, if at all possible, whether we're doing brick kills, whether we're doing the it's basically cap and seal in place, but in a way where you're actually protecting the ground as you go. I think it's called encapsulation. And I just equate it as a mom into putting all the coal ash in Ziploc bags. But my main goal is I don't want that coal ash touching the ground, and I want to do it in a cost-effective way, so we're depreciating that cost so that it's not so expensive over the long term. And that's my hope and my wish.
Question
Okay.
to her.
Senator Sproul.
Let me ask you a question. I'm hearing what you're saying. Why are you saying that if this was a problem that was created by the company, why are you saying that you want to extend it a long period of time, and why you want the customer to pay for something that they did? And if it was something that was created by the customer, this flyer stuff was not done by the customer. It was a mistake, we assume, on their part. So why are you asking that the customer to pay for a mistake that they did? Then on a long period of time, when you say that, we have no idea when it's paid for and how we know when it's going to stop. So I'm just trying to figure out, why should the customer pay something that the company did themselves that is wrong? They got to clean it up, and you're going to ask the customer to pay for something that they did. They got plenty of money. Why can't they do it themselves?
Senator Sproul, I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, I asked that very question a long time ago, and here's what I've come with after doing some research. Dominion has not always owned this problem. VEPCO's been around before them. And anybody that uses electricity, we're all part of the problem. We created the coal ash. Anybody that has turned on a light switch is part of this problem. And so the State Corporation Commission gives Dominion the ability to recoup their cost through a rate adjustment clause. Now, I would love for Dominion just to pay for that. That would be great. But, and if they want to do that, I mean, we're certainly open to that.
Okay, we're getting way off point
But-
about, nobody's talking about rate adjustment clauses here. Nobody's talking about payment here. What we got right now is a bill in front of us that talks to allowing Dominion to get a permit to close existing ponds, keeping the moratorium in place and continuing ahead with a study where all of this that we're talking about right now will be vetted out. And with that,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Senator Surovell.
sorry. First of all, Prince William County is here. They just also wanted to make sure that it was known that localities also might want to have a voice in whatever process there is. Number one. Number two, STLC had a clarification on the Chesapeake situation. I don't know if the committee's interested in hearing that really quick.
No, we have a bill in front of us,
Got
and
it.
I told you I
You're
got
trying to
20,
move the
I got
docket.
20
I get it.
minutes and I got to chair another committee.
Got it.
So
Okay.
we know what's going to happen. Let me just say this right now, Senator Chase, I can carry your bill over, which allows you to come and be part of the committee because you're not a member of this committee right now. Or I can roll your bill in with Senator Surovell and you can be chief co-patrons. Your choice. You want me to carry over so you can attend the meetings as a member, or do you want to be chief co-patron of the bill?
I'll be chief co-patron with
All
Senator
right,
Surovell.
all right. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to roll Senate Bill 708 from Senator Chase into Senator Surovell's, what did we decide that was? 807. Okay, 708 and 807. So it's been moved and seconded that Senator Chase bill be rolled over. All those in favor? Say aye.
Ayes 14, noes 1, 1 abstention.
Okay, the bills are rolled together. Committee operates by
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, you need to roll my other 5 or strike them.
I'm going to refer the rest of your bills into the study.
Got
Okay, all right. All right, committee operates by motion. Couple people want to speak? Okay, come on.
Mr. Chairman, we got a motion, second.
I make a motion that bills be passed by for the year and referred to committee of which you speak.
Second.
Oh, the remainder bills. We're not on that. We're on this bill right now, so don't get me out of order. We have not acted on 807 and 708, and we're going to report that bill. Yes, sir, briefly.
Very briefly, Nate Benferrado at the Southern Environmental Law Center. I just wanted to correct a few things about the Chesapeake site. For 30 years, Dominion was sluicing coal ash wastewater into these 3 settling ponds that are collectively referred to as the Historic Pond. Those ponds still exist. They contain 2.1 million tons. A federal judge has already ruled that those ponds are discharging arsenic into the southern branch of the Elizabeth River. There's no functional distinction between the bottom ash pond, which is Dominion has committed to being dug up, and that historic pond. It's not a landfill. It's an impoundment that should be dealt with the same.
Thank you, and it's still under litigation, my understanding. Yes, sir.
Robert Crockett, Devanis for Prince William County. Appreciate the comments from Senator Stewart. We just want to make sure the localities are considered when you go through the study.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
This
one
is
last, I have 2 constituents here, the Marrows. They don't have to speak. I just want to acknowledge they're here. They live
Oh,
next to the pond.
If
They've
they
been
would,
severely
stand up,
affected.
please. Let
Right
me-
here.
Thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it. This is, believe me, a step ahead of where the House is right now. Okay, we have some legislation moving forward. The House have rolled everything into the study. So keep that in mind. It's going to be all we can do to get this bill out of the House when we take it over there. Okay, it's a step. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Committee operates by motion. Been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 807 and the amendment in nature substitute be reported. Clerk, open the rolls. Okay.
Ayes 13, noes 1, 1 abstention.
Okay. And the chair would entertain a motion to take Senate Bill 765, 766, 767, 768, 808 in a block and carry those bills over, and I'll refer them to the study committee. Is there such a motion? Been moved and seconded. Those bills be carried over to next year. Clerk, open the rolls. Okay. Hang on.
Ayes 15, no 0.